welcome to the second day of the third reading forum. This presentation is called Creating a Love of Reading. I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Thomasin Hazelden. I'm the LT of two schools in Umugweng. My Cycle 1 school is Al Abrak School for Basic Education, and my Cycle 2 and 3 is Al Salama Girls School for Basic and Secondary Education. I'd like to start with a quote that I use quite a lot in conjunction with reading, because I think it demonstrates that reading is part of the fabric of the UAE. So one of the themes of this forum is looking forward towards the next 50 years and how reading will prepare students for that future. And I think this quote is perfect for that. It very neatly encapsulates how important reading is to the future of the UAE. So why read? I'm going to go through some reasons that are specifically related to English language teaching. So each class is only 40 to 45 minutes long. At the moment, it's 30 to 35 minutes. There is a limit to how much language you can introduce in that time frame. When students read, they dramatically increase the amount of language they encounter. So they are going to increase their vocabulary. Within this, they are exposed to the words in context. They can be shown how to find the meaning of unfamiliar words using this context. So not only are they increasing their vocabulary, they are increasing the repertoire of comprehension strategies too. They will improve their knowledge of grammar. So they will have multiple examples of the same grammatical structures using different vocabulary. Within class, we cannot provide nearly as many models of these structures that they will encounter during reading. They will gain a better understanding of coherence. So how a text hangs together. We can overtly teach this during class time. We can teach them about topic sentences, main ideas, supporting ideas, summary sentences. But students who read many different authors get a sense of coherence beyond what we can teach. Recently, we've been marking the grade 12 English exams, and really you can tell the readers they have a sense of they've developed their own style, and they've done this through reading many different authors. They will develop comprehension strategies through exercising their working memories. So when your working memory is the memory you use to figure things out, essentially. This has implications for success in international tests like PEARLS, PISA, and consequently for Vision 2021. It also has implications for their own studies. It equips them with the skills they will need at university and beyond. So these are all very academic, very teacher-led reasons why students should read, but students need to be presented with reasons that resonate with them. So this is the student version of why read. Reading can be fun. Obviously, reading is in competition with all kinds of technology nowadays. Reading is relaxing. So readers have less stress. Students are obviously very stressed at the moment because it's exam time, so they need to relax. Reading helps you sleep. So this is really borne out by research. You need to switch off all those electronic devices at least an hour to half an hour before you go to sleep. Otherwise, you're not going to get a good quality of sleep. Reading improves your memory. We've already dealt with that. Readers are better writers. So some of these ideas are in both the teacher reasons and the student reasons. So I got these from why reading books will save your life. And I use this a lot with students. So we know why students should read, but do students read? Now, apart from a few shiny examples, I would say no. So why don't they read? They know it's important. We know it's important. Why don't they do it? So I've had various answers from students. Reading is boring. So as I mentioned, there are lots of distractions that are far more interesting to the majority of students than picking up a book. We're competing with TV, with YouTube, with gaming, chatting with friends, all sorts of things. There are no English books. Accessibility is an issue. So when I've gone to libraries in Kuwait, in RAK, I can see they do have a few Arabic books, but they have even fewer English books. School libraries might have some English books, but still not very many. I can't read in English. This is a sad one because confidence is a huge issue. So as teachers, as educators, we need to find strategies to help students over that barrier. We have too much homework already. This one is incredibly revealing because it means that students see reading as work. They don't see it as pleasure. So we need to think of ways to change that. So how can we encourage students to read? I think a major thing we can do within school is actually create a reading environment and to give them opportunities to read. I mean, if they don't have the opportunities, they can't do it. So if you're in school, you can speak to the librarian about obtaining more English books. They do have a budget for books. Also, to do with English, there were graded readers delivered a couple of years ago. So there are some English books in every school. You can schedule library visits for each class, maybe at the beginning of term, at the beginning of year. So books might be available, but if students don't know they're there, they're not gonna look at them. So have a trip to the library. Show students what's available. Dealing with accessibility, bookcases in classrooms throughout the school. This dramatically increases the visibility and availability of books. So this isn't going to be appropriate for all schools. So maybe in those sort of schools, lockable cabinets might work. So the books are still visible. The students know they're available. They can ask to borrow them, but they're protected. This is something we've done in our school. These are pictures of our Salama. You can see we've created reading nooks. These are inviting places for students to read. So there are little signs here saying that these are reading areas. And you can see there's benches, there's little canopies as well. So it creates a kind of den-like structure. It makes it really cozy and a nice place to go and sit. This is a reading event that took place in school. Notice that teachers got involved as well as students. This is very important. Also, only one of the teachers pictured is actually a language teacher. The other two teach maths. So this demonstrates to students that literacy transcends teaching subject and it's universal. So this goes to creating a culture of reading within the school. The other picture you can see here, this is a beautiful thing. This is our reading trolley. So we can load this with books and we can wheel it wherever we need it in the school. So again, it's about increasing the availability and visibility of books within the school. The first picture you see here, this is our canteen, and there is a bookcase on the wall. This picture was taken when it was new, so there are no books there. There are books there now. So students can sit, eat their lunch, and read books. The picture, the lower picture, that is another outdoor space where students can sit. We can maybe have lessons out there in the winter. We are incredibly lucky because our school was renovated recently, so we now have all the corridors are enclosed, so we now have indoor spaces where students can sit and read. The windows, the far windows you see there, that's actually the library. So this is a space outside of the library where books are available, but students can sit and read outside of the library. Again, lots more bookcases throughout our school. Really this demonstrates that books are part of the fabric of life at Al Salama. We have reading mornings. So in the winter, students go outside, students and teachers, which is important, go outside. They take books into the quadrant. They read. In the summer, this takes place in the classroom. Notice the teacher has a book as well. This is incredibly important. So as teachers, we are role models. If teachers also read, students see that. So it's about creating a culture of reading, normalizing reading throughout the school. So these are all strategies we can employ within the school, but sadly, we are not there at the moment. But most practices that take place in the classroom can be translated into the online forum. So now we are not in school, we don't have libraries. We could ask students to find their own books, but this is a financial burden. There are sources of free books that are readily available online. Open Library has a wonderful collection of books. They're categorized into books suitable for kindergarten all the way up to grade 12. That is a lovely resource, lots of things on there. There's BookBub. I've also included Scribed. However, Scribed, they've got audiobooks, they've got ebooks, they've got lots of things. However, it is only free for 30 days. So choose your 30 days wisely. Something I've done in my classroom, both when we were in school and now we're online, is to have student readers at the beginning of every lesson. So I take volunteers or I nominate people. Students select their own book. This is important. So when I first started this initiative, students who were volunteered or nominated for the week, they were going to the library just before the lesson. They were grabbing the nearest English book, and they didn't prepare. They just read from the first page, and they kept asking me, teacher, can I stop? So I started turning that round on them, and I said to them, do you think this is a good place to stop? Think about the story. Do you think you could read some more? You choose. Some of them, admittedly, just stopped immediately, but as time went on, this started to get less and less, and they started actually thinking about what they were reading and continuing until an appropriate place to stop. So this is part of my strategy of developing student autonomy in their reading. So they choose what to read, they choose when to stop. By choosing their own books, it is my hope that even the most hardened non-readers will eventually find something they want to read. I have also banned reading from the first page. They have to choose the most exciting passage from the book and prepare it. So this actually forces them to read at least some of the book. So again, if they're reading, they might find something they like. I also get them to think about what they're reading. So before they read, they tell us the title, the author, a little bit about the story so far. Afterwards, we discuss the book a little. I ask the students if they're enjoying it, what their favourite part is so far, what they think might happen as well. So this is me organising who's going to read on Teams. So this can all be done through Teams. At the beginning of the Teams lesson, get somebody to read. So what I have found, students they've chosen books at their level of English, which is interesting. We've not had people come with things that are way above their level. So in the same class, I've had students reading the classics, quite complex language, but not beyond them. But in the same class, I've had one student reading The Hobbit, which was fantastic. And the other student, because I had 2 readers that day, the other student chose Little Red Hen. And that was fun because that's her level of English. I teach an advanced class. So they are not chosen to be an advanced for their level of English. They're chosen for maths, they're chosen for science. So yeah, there are all levels within that class. I was anticipating to have to push them to read, but really beyond the first week, that didn't really happen. And I saw that any discomfort, it dissipated very quickly and it became the norm. This could be because my school in general, the students are quite supportive of each other, but I found that across the UAE. Students want each other to succeed. So if you try this in the UK, that might be a different matter, but in the UAE, fantastic. Some students have pushed themselves to read a little above their level, but not disproportionately so. And that's interesting. They seem to instinctively know what their reading level is. And if they want to push themselves there, they're doing it a little bit, and that's perfect. So students have used me as a resource to enable them to push themselves. They've asked me for help with vocabulary. They've asked me to recommend books. It is gratifying to have students asking me about words and sentences in a book they're reading that is extracurricular. That is a lovely, lovely thing. I want to talk very briefly about recommending books. So I teach a Cycle 3 class. I have not recommended books for my Cycle 3 students, essentially due to the need to be culturally appropriate. It's relatively easy to find books for Cycles 1 and 2, but not Cycle 3. So even if I read this book when I was a child and I can't remember anything wrong with it, I will only recommend a book if I've read it recently and with the cultural appropriacy document to hand, because I cannot rely on my own memory about these books. So yeah, watch that. So as part of developing student autonomy, I've given them tools and strategies to help with their reading. So I've given them access to online dictionaries. I've reinforced ways to help them find the meaning by not using dictionaries. And really students have become more self-sufficient. When we were in class, actually, students were very interested in the books each other were reading, and some of them started sharing books, which was lovely to see. I'd like to also show you something that I've been using for a while. This is a literacy journal. It's been, I've used the reading part of this journal for a while. This year, I've also adapted it to include listening, really in response to the listening test results. So in this handbook, if I just click to show you this handbook. Okay, so you might recognise that quote from earlier. I do love it. In this handbook, I've got the why read. I have got reading tips here. You can see the online dictionaries. You can see all kinds of. I'm just checking. I'm just sharing my screen. You can see all kinds of things that I'm doing in the class. Oh, excuse me. Where is it? Okay. This happened before we left. I included ways to find books within UAQ, within the UAE. Obviously, now we've moved online, there are different things we can do. This is the reading journal. It's getting them to be active readers. So when they write the vocabulary down that they are using, they are really quantifying what they're learning from these books. So I've asked them to not just write down the word, but think about the word class, think about synonyms of the word, use it in a sentence, so chunk the language. I've asked them the usual things, so main characters, main locations. I've also asked them to summarize the plot. So this is obviously an important skill, the summary. There's also, is it similar to anything else you've read? This is a comparative section within the literacy journal. So this asks them to analyse books in conjunction with each other. So it develops the skill to link information from multiple sources. So this is something, a skill that is actually highlighted within the PISA international test, but also it's something they'll need in their studies beyond school. It is a very important skill for university, for example. I've also included something about their favourite part and how they would improve this book. So both these sections are designed to get them to think critically about what they've read. When I first started doing this, the how would you improve this book section was not very successful, I have to say. But they are actually starting to write more now. I would get answers like, no, it's perfect, it's fine, I loved it. But as time's gone on, they are actually thinking more critically about what they're doing. Okay. Excuse me while I swap back. So the listening part. So as I said, this started out as a response to the listening test results and the need for action there. But really, if students will resolutely not pick up a book or read an e-book or anything, they might listen to an audiobook. This could be the key to literacy for those students. So they're still exposed to the same vocabulary, the same grammatical structures that reading would provide, but they're doing it in a different way. Also, some students do not like fiction. So although they can read non-fiction, they can find podcasts, radio programs on any subject they are likely to want to listen to. So again, this is about telling the student to find something they want to listen to, and getting them to improve their literacy that way. Okay, part of the listening journal is about exposing students to multiple different accents and dialects of English. So again, if I can just show you the listening part of this journal. Come on. Thank you. So again, I've got explanations of why we should listen. I've got tips for listening. I've included listening to content words, listening for gist, listening for detail. I've included places to find things to listen to. And this is the listening journal itself. So again, they're writing the details of what they listened to, who did they listen to. So identifying different accents is incredibly difficult for ESL students. Most will not be able to do this initially, but really when they start to tune their ears in, it will become easier for them. And really identifying different accents and dialects really has it has a knock-on effect on understanding what they're listening to. Again, new vocabulary. What was the topic? So this is listening for gist, what the main idea was. I've also asked them to listen for detail. So they need to write at least 5 details of what they've listened to here, the new things they've learned. What was interesting? So the new things they've learned and what was interesting, they might not correlate. So that's interesting when students fill that out. Again, there is a comparative part. So asking them to link different things they've read or listened to. And again, a critical part, how would you improve? So I'd like to show you a completed reading journal. This student actually chose to read non-fiction. So here we have a day in the life of a doctor. She's written her new vocabulary. She's written down all the synonyms. She's written it in sentences. Fantastic. She's written a summary. She's actually drawn analogies between this doctor and Robinson Crusoe. So by reading this literacy journal, I can pick up on things like that. And I mean, I don't score these literacy journals. This is for them. This is to improve their language. It's not something that I give a mark to. But if I see something like that, I might come back to the student and ask them a little bit more about it. So you do get some interesting thoughts. This is her listening journal. So again, she has listened to non-fiction. It's a non-fiction audiobook. So who did you listen to? So English, British, American. So she's at the beginning of her listening journal, her listening journey. She will probably be able to do that in a few months' time. Okay. So, book club. This is something I've set up very recently. It occurred to me that when students were reading their books at the beginning of my lessons in school, they were then talking about the books for a little bit. And now we're online, they've kind of lost the ability to do that. So the literacy journal, it's self-reflection, it's self-analysis. The audience for that is essentially the students and the teacher. So the reading the class, that introduces students to new books, but they don't have the time to discuss this. So the book club that I've set up really opens up a dialogue about books away from the school lesson environment. So they have unlimited time to talk about what they're reading. They can recommend or otherwise books to other students. And they can inspire each other to read. They also use this to upload their literacy journals. So I created a space using LMS. So this is my space, the 10 Advanced Book Club. As I said, I did this quite recently. And I've just asked them, what are you reading? Do you like it? Why not? Some students chose to reply to this post. Other students chose to create their own post. I was quite skeptical. I thought, I'm just going to get a regurgitation of what they've written about in their literacy journals. I was wrong. I have seen books that I didn't even know they were reading. So yeah, all sorts of fantastic things. Modern books, classic books, lovely. And you can see here that students, they're commenting on each other's posts. They're really discussing these books, and it's a lovely, lovely thing. They've even started reading and commenting on each other's literacy journals, which is something I really didn't expect. So that takes place at my my Cycle 2-3 school. My Cycle 1 school, I've also been doing some fantastic work to improve literacy. So my Cycle 1 is Al-Abraq. As I said, it is easier to recommend books for Cycle 1 and Cycle 2 students. So here, they've been using the Oxford Reading Tree. So they have differentiated books and assign books to students based on ability. They have also differentiated the tasks they've set around these books. So some students summarize the texts, others just read aloud every week and they answer brief questions. But you can see this is a screenshot from LMS. They built it up week on week. This is something that happens every week in this school. And now we're online. They have found different tools to be able to do this. So here we can see Padlet as a literacy journal. So this is fantastic because it means students can see and learn from each other's work as well as their own. So I'd also like to share something I've been doing very recently in my class. So again, this can be used as a way of inspiring literacy in resolute non-readers. So in order to access the really fun activities, they are going to need to read and produce a summary. So digital storytelling, it's a way of telling a story through electronic means. It's developing their 21st century skills. So they need to work as a team, or I've asked them to work as a part of a team. Now we're online, they are collaborating at a distance, which is very different to sitting in a classroom and talking about things. But this is an important skill because in the future, these students might be working on projects with team members across the world. So really, this sort of task, now we're online, demonstrates them how this is possible. So I had a few students contact me and I said, oh, teacher, it would be less stress, she said, if I did this on my own. And I said, yes, it would, but it wouldn't teach you as much. And the project you do on your own will be very different to the project you produce once you've shared ideas and worked together. And she accepted that, bless her. So it also, as well as working as a team and collaborating as a distance, it also gets them to look at their technical media skills and improves things like that. It's very cross-curricular. So as part of this, they summarize a text and then they use it creatively. This cements their knowledge of the vocabulary and the language structures used. So it's a very important. Or they can create their own. Some students chose to be completely autonomous, and they actually created their own story, which is lovely with the target language. So this is the task I gave them. You can see here I've set a group. This was a shared file on Teams. I assigned roles depending on their ability and their skill set. So you need to know your students well. You need to know, okay, so that person would be very, very good at doing that. So they had to write, they had to storyboard, and they had to animate a story. I gave them some possible tools to do this. I recommended Puppet Pals. If they don't have iPad or iPhone, storyboard that. I even said, you can even draw pictures and animate it yourself. So, I gave them lots of different things, but I wanted them to record a voiceover, have a narrator, all those sort of things. This is what they came up with. They had 5 days to do this. I'm just going to play you a little bit. This is one group. They drew everything themselves.
There was a boy called Jack. He is 18, and today he is going to enter a talent show at his school. At the talent show will be a famous singer to pick someone to win and become a singer and sign a contract with him. This will be his opportunity to shine. Hey Jack, don't forget to eat your breakfast.
Okay, Mom.
While getting ready for school quickly because he is late.
Mom, where is my jacket? It's cold out.
Shouting from his room. It's in the washing machine and it's not finished yet. I'll bring it to you to school. Now eat and go. Shouting back.
But Mom, it's cold outside.
He said while eating quickly. No. No buts. Now go. He went outside and the bus was gone.
Mom, take me to school. The bus is gone.
While acting sad. Sorry, baby, but I can't.
Okay, so that was one group. The next group, they chose to animate it using Toontastic.
Once upon a time, in a school, after the students finished their second class, they went to have their break. There was a girl whose name is Lisa. She was having her lunch alone. After a while, a group of students came to Lisa and they started bullying her, hurting her feelings by saying, "Look."
Okay, so lots of fantastic things being produced through digital storytelling. Another way we inspire students to read is through competition. So we're now online, but that doesn't mean we can't be creative. So this is the online literacy festival we will be doing. So competition, it inspires student participation. There is poetry writing and story writing. There are games. There's poetry and prose reading. I would like to talk briefly about the production effect. So you might have noticed that a lot of the literacy strategies that we employ involve performance. And this is because of the theory that words read aloud are committed to memory much more effectively than words read silently. So students who read aloud, as well as analysing what they've read, will gain much more from their reading. And students who use something they've learned more creatively are much more likely to retain that information and also in the future be able to produce it in suitable contexts. So that's the thinking. This is the poetry reading competition. I've divided it into cycle 2, cycle 3. So you can see here, there is a poem to read. I've given students a rubric. So accuracy, how well you pronounce the words and where you choose to pause. Obviously, with poetry reading, there is a degree of interpretation about where you pause. So that is a skill, and that's one of the things that will be marked on. The fluency, whether you read without stopping or stumbling over the words. And drama, so how well you show the feelings in the poem. And so this poem has emotion, your voice should demonstrate this. I worked out that you can embed audio into PDFs. So yeah, here I've recorded myself reading a few lines of this poem just to demonstrate, just to model it for them, so they can see what is required. So there is a poetry reading competition. There's also a prose reading competition. I have taken the 9 Advanced Literature book and I've used an extract from that. Because I know it's culturally appropriate. So I've taken the Jungle Book. Here, notice the accuracy is ever so slightly different. So it's based on how well you pronounce the words and whether you pause for punctuation. Because obviously, within prose, the punctuation is more defined than in poetry. Again, I've modelled it for them. I've included a few lines, not the whole thing, just a few lines. This is the poetry reading competition for cycle 3. So the theme of this poem is hope. There is a reason for that I will go through in a minute. And the cycle 3 prose reading competition is the sign of 4. So again, this is an exciting passage I've chosen. The last line says, "In the light of the lantern, I read with horror the sign of 4." I've chosen these passages in the hope that students will want to know what happens next. So it might get them to read these books. Okay, so there is a writing part to this competition as well. Now, in providing the reading competition, what's happened is a model has been provided for the writing part. So notice the theme is hope. So yeah, the cycle 3 poetry reading poem was also about hope. So I've done this because Arabic poetry is different to English poetry. Arabic poetry has a set structure. There are all kinds of rules associated with it, but English poetry is more free. So really what I've done is provide a model for students to be able to notice that and look at it. So I would like to show you an example of a poem I've had submitted. This is one of my students. I'm very proud. So hope.
Hazeldine, just want to remind you that we have 15 minutes to go and we need to answer 10 questions. Okay. So when you finish this part, yes, we will give 10 minutes. Yes, we will give 10 minutes for the Q&A. So this is just
slide, I promise.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So hope. Extend your wings, be the bird of dreams, fulfill hopes, be the light, not the dark. Oh, who cried nights for his loved ones, do not be sad, but strive and be knowledgeable and hope for those you love. Do not be sad and break the hearts of your beloved ones. Oh, who tried and did not give up. Beautiful. So yeah, I am very proud of her. I would like to leave you with the thought that reading does not stand alone. It is intrinsically linked to productive language skills and also other literacies. So if students become readers, they are given the keys to literacy practices they need to be effective users of language. So reading should be part of every student's life at school and at home. And as educators, we need to find strategies to facilitate this. Okay, so there are my references. I will stop sharing my screen and look at some questions.